How I went from being a victim to success and prosperity in 30 days. Have you ever looked at your life and felt like things were happening to you, not for you? Like no matter how hard you tried, life kept pushing you down. People let you down, opportunities slipped away, and your dreams felt just out of reach. I know that feeling too well, because not long ago, I was living it. I was stuck in the mindset of a victim, believing that my circumstances, my past, and even luck were controlling my destiny. But something shifted, something so simple, yet so profound, that within 30 days my entire reality changed. I went from feeling powerless to feeling unstoppable, from scarcity to abundance, from survival to creation. And in this video, I'm going to share exactly how it happened. This isn't about luck or fake positivity or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about understanding how the inner shift creates the outer results. It's about learning to stop being the victim of your story and becoming the author of your success and prosperity. Because the truth is, success doesn't start with action, it starts with awareness. So if you've ever felt trapped in the same cycles, if you've ever asked, why me? Or when will things finally change? Stay with me until the end. What I'm about to share can completely reprogram your perspective on success, manifestation, and life itself. Topic 1. The moment I realized I was the one holding myself back. There was a morning when I woke up, looked in the mirror, and couldn't recognize the person staring back at me. I wasn't failing because the world was against me. I was failing because I had been against myself. I had been living in a constant state of blame, blaming people for not supporting me, blaming my job for my stress, blaming my past for my fears. Every time something didn't go my way, I had an excuse ready. It made me feel safe, protected, but it also made me powerless. The moment you decide you're a victim, you unconsciously hand over your power to everything outside of you. You give permission to circumstances to dictate your emotions. You allow other people's actions to define your worth. You become reactive instead of creative. And that's exactly what I had done. I remember thinking, why can't I get ahead? Why do I keep attracting the same problems? But the real question wasn't why was this happening to me? It was why was I still choosing it? That's a difficult truth to face. Because once you realize your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs are shaping your reality, there's no one left to blame. But that's also the moment when true freedom begins. In that instant, I understood something powerful. I couldn't manifest abundance while holding on to the identity of a victim. You can't be both at the same time. The vibration of I'm helpless and the vibration of I'm abundant cannot exist in the same frequency. It's like trying to tune into a prosperity radio station while broadcasting your pain on another channel. The signals will never align. So I made a decision that morning, a decision that would change everything. I decided to stop waiting for life to change and to start changing myself. I decided to become 100% responsible for my emotions, my reactions, and my results. Not 50%, not 80%, 100%. That's where empowerment begins. Responsibility doesn't mean guilt or shame. It means reclaiming your creative power. It means saying, I might not control everything that happens to me, but I control how I interpret it, and that interpretation creates my future. When you realize that, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become the creator of possibilities. Over the next few days, I started noticing patterns, tiny clues revealing how my victim mindset had been running the show. When something went wrong, my first thought was always, of course, this would happen to me. That thought alone was programming my subconscious to expect struggle. Every complaint, every moment of self-pity, every time I repeated the story of my limitations, I was reinforcing the vibration of lack. But as I began to shift my awareness, something remarkable happened. The same situations that used to frustrate me became mirrors for my growth. Instead of reacting, I started observing. Instead of blaming, I started asking, what is this trying to teach me? That simple change in question was a mental reprogramming trigger. It took me from victimhood to wisdom, from frustration to flow. The human brain is wired to look for patterns. It seeks to confirm what we already believe. So when you believe you're unlucky, your mind scans the environment to prove it. When you believe you're abundant, your mind does the same. That's not magic. It's neuroscience. It's called the reticular activating system, the filter in your brain that determines what information you notice and what you ignore. When you train it to see opportunities instead of obstacles, your entire world rearranges itself to reflect that focus. So, the first real step I took in those 30 days wasn't about changing my actions, it was about changing my identity. I began saying to myself, I am no longer the victim. I am the creator. I am the cause, not the effect. And that internal declaration started a chain reaction. I stopped complaining. I stopped gossiping. I stopped repeating old stories that kept me small. I became intentional with my words because I understood that every word is a command to the subconscious mind. And the moment you stop telling the story of your struggle and start telling the story of your strength, your reality begins to obey. It wasn't easy at first. I had to catch myself 100 times a day. But each time I replaced a victim thought with a creator thought, I felt a subtle surge of energy, like I was reclaiming pieces of myself I had given away. By the end of the first week, I noticed something I hadn't felt in years: clarity. It was as if fog had lifted, and for the first time I could see that life wasn't happening to me. It was happening through me. That awareness became the foundation for every transformation that followed. Topic 2. The Science of Transformation: Reprogramming Your Mind for Prosperity. When I began my 30-day transformation, I didn't just change my habits, I changed my programming. It felt like I was updating the software of my brain after years of running on outdated code. The truth is, most people are operating with beliefs that were installed when they were children, long before they could question them. Those beliefs become invisible scripts that shape how we think, feel, and act, especially about money, success, and self-worth. If you grew up hearing phrases like, "money doesn't grow on trees," or "you have to work yourself to death to be successful," those statements didn't just enter your ears, they entered your subconscious. And the subconscious doesn't reason, it obeys. It takes every repeated phrase as a command, turning it into part of your identity. So, while your conscious mind might say, "I want to be rich," your subconscious might be whispering, "Wealth is unsafe," or "Rich people are greedy." Guess which one wins? The subconscious. Every single time. Neuroscience has proven that about 95% of our daily thoughts, emotions, and actions come from the subconscious mind. That means most of what we do isn't conscious choice. It's programming. So, when I decided to stop being a victim, I had to do more than just think positive thoughts. I had to rewire my brain to believe new truths. The brain doesn't change because we want it to. It changes because we teach it to. And teaching it means repetition, emotion, and focus. Those are the three elements of neural reprogramming. Repetition installs the new belief. Emotion fuels it with energy. Focus directs it into the subconscious where it becomes automatic. I started by observing my inner dialogue. The way I talked to myself revealed everything about my programming. I realized that my thoughts were like a constant stream of small, negative affirmations. This always happens to me. I'll never catch up. I don't have enough. Every thought carried emotional weight, and emotion is the language of the subconscious. Each repetition was strengthening the wrong neural pathway, the one aligned with lack and limitation. So I began to rewrite those commands. When the old thought said, "I can't," I replaced it with, "I'm learning how." When it said, "I don't have enough," I said, "I'm open to receiving more." It might sound simple, but these linguistic shifts create neurological shifts. Every time you affirm a new idea, your brain begins building new connections. That's neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to physically rewire itself in response to new patterns of thought and emotion. In the first week, it felt awkward. My old self was resisting, trying to pull me back into familiar suffering. The brain loves the known, even if the known is painful. It's addicted to predictability. So when you start thinking differently, it feels unsafe. Not because it's bad, but because it's new. That's why change feels uncomfortable at first. But discomfort is proof that transformation is happening. By the second week, I could feel something shifting inside me. I started noticing how my energy changed the moment I shifted a thought. When I caught myself thinking, "Things never work out," and replaced it with, "Everything is always working in my favor," I could literally feel my body relax. My breathing slowed, my chest opened, my energy expanded. That's how powerful thought is. It's not abstract, it's physiological. The body listens to the mind. In that period, I also discovered that the subconscious mind doesn't understand future tense. It only responds to the now. So instead of saying, I will be successful, I began saying, I am successful. Instead of, I will attract abundance, I affirmed, I live in abundance. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. It simply responds to the emotion attached to the thought. That's why visualization works. You're rehearsing your future until your brain believes it's happening now. Every morning, I would spend 10 minutes in silence, visualizing the version of me who was already successful, already abundant, already at peace. I didn't just see that person. I felt them. I felt the calm confidence, the gratitude, the joy of having already achieved what I desired. That emotional rehearsal started sending new signals to my nervous system. And slowly, the external world began to rearrange itself to match the inner vibration. People started showing up. Ideas flowed more easily. Synchronicities happened almost daily. This isn't magic. It's quantum alignment. The law of vibration states that everything, including thoughts, operates on frequency. Prosperity isn't something you chase. It's something you tune into. When your inner frequency matches the vibration of abundance, life mirrors it back to you. But here's something many people miss. Reprogramming your mind isn't about forcing positivity. It's about shifting perception. If something went wrong, I didn't say, this is great, when it wasn't. I said, there's a lesson here, and I'm going to find it. That mindset keeps your energy neutral and open. Because the goal isn't to avoid negative experiences, it's to stop identifying with them. When you stop saying, this is happening to me, and start saying, this is happening for me, you move from resistance to creation. The more I practiced this, the more consistent I became. And consistency is the magic ingredient most people underestimate. You can't reprogram your mind by doing it once. It's like going to the gym one time and expecting to be fit forever. Transformation requires repetition with emotion and intention. I set reminders on my phone with affirmations like, I am the creator of my reality. Abundance flows through me. I am worthy of prosperity. Every time they popped up, I paused, breathed, and felt them as true. That emotional consistency began to anchor a new identity. By the end of the second week, I could feel my reality shifting. People who used to drain me stopped calling. Unexpected opportunities appeared. I started feeling gratitude for small things I'd ignored before. The sunlight on my face, a good conversation, a new idea. Gratitude became my proof that the reprogramming was working. Because gratitude is the emotional signature of receiving. When you feel grateful, you signal to your subconscious that you already have enough. And what you feel you have, you attract more of. In those moments, I realized something profound. Success and prosperity are not goals. They're states of consciousness. They're frequencies we align with through thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. The external world is only a reflection of your inner alignment. When I fully understood that, I stopped chasing success and started embodying it. I became the energy I wanted to attract. And that's when everything began to accelerate. The science of transformation is simple but profound. You become what you repeatedly think and feel. Change the repetition, and you change the reality. Topic 3. Breaking the cycle. How to stop attracting the same struggles and start creating momentum. One of the most painful realizations in my journey was seeing how often I kept recreating the same experiences in different forms. Different people, different jobs, different moments, but the same emotional pattern. It was like living the same movie with new actors. The plot never changed because my vibration hadn't changed. I kept wondering, why do I keep attracting situations that make me feel powerless? The truth? Because I hadn't learned the lesson that each situation was trying to teach me. Life will always repeat the lesson until you master it. Patterns are the language of the subconscious mind. If you keep seeing the same problems, financial struggles, unhealthy relationships, missed opportunities, it's not punishment, it's feedback. It's your inner programming replaying the same emotional script, hoping you'll finally choose differently. You can't create new results with the same energy that created the old ones. That's not philosophy, it's energetic law. When I started becoming aware of my repeating patterns, I realized that every time something went wrong, I responded the same way: frustration, self-doubt, or blame. Those emotions were my autopilot response, and each time I indulged them, I reinforced the old identity of the victim. Momentum works both ways. It can accelerate success or sustain stagnation. The key is to redirect it. The first step to breaking a cycle is awareness. You can't change what you can't see. I began writing down the patterns that kept showing up in my life. The same financial struggles that made me feel trapped. The same emotional conflicts that made me feel small. The same fears that kept me from taking action. Once I saw them on paper, it was like seeing the blueprint of my own limitations. And that's when I understood. Awareness dissolves illusion. When you bring a pattern into consciousness, it begins to lose its power over you. But awareness alone isn't enough. You must replace the pattern with a new emotional choice. If the old reaction was fear, the new one must be faith. If it was doubt, replace it with decision. If it was resentment, choose forgiveness. These new responses are not just moral choices, they are energetic recalibrations. Every time you respond differently to a familiar trigger, you are teaching your subconscious a new pattern. That's how cycles end, not through force, but through new frequency. For example, one of my biggest repeating struggles was financial instability. No matter how much I earned, something would happen to drain it away. When I traced it back, I found a deep-rooted belief that money doesn't stay with me. That belief came from watching my parents struggle, hearing arguments about bills, and associating money with stress. My subconscious believed that financial comfort was unsafe because it led to conflict. So, every time I started to feel stable, my subconscious sabotaged it, creating an unexpected expense, a bad decision, or sudden fear. The moment I recognized that belief, I decided to reprogram it. I began affirming, money flows easily and stays with me because I use it wisely. I visualized myself saving, investing, and feeling calm about abundance. And more importantly, I acted differently. I started treating small amounts of money with the respect I wanted to have for larger sums. Because the subconscious doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you do repeatedly with emotion. Soon, I noticed small changes. Unexpected refunds, new clients, or gifts appeared. But the real change was internal. I stopped panicking about money. That peace was the signal that the old frequency was dissolving. Another pattern I had to break was emotional dependency, the need for validation. I realized that I was constantly seeking approval from others before making decisions. That energy of insecurity was repelling opportunities because it screamed, I don't trust myself. Once I saw it, I decided to practice self-trust daily. I stopped asking for opinions about every decision. I started asking myself, what feels aligned for me? The more I did that, the more confident and magnetic I became. Breaking cycles isn't glamorous. It's repetitive. It requires catching yourself in real time and choosing differently again and again until the old reaction feels foreign. But the moment you make a new choice under old pressure, you're no longer the same person. That's how identity evolves, from reaction to creation. Momentum begins the moment you stop feeding the old pattern. The brain operates on efficiency. It automates whatever you repeat. So when you stop repeating disempowering responses, your energy becomes available for creation. You literally free up neurological bandwidth to imagine new possibilities. By the third week of my 30-day journey, I began to experience a different kind of momentum. Things that used to trigger me no longer did. I felt lighter. Situations that once drained me started losing their emotional charge. That's when I knew I had broken the energetic loop. My focus shifted from avoiding pain to building vision. You see, when you stop asking, why does this always happen to me? And start asking, what pattern is this revealing within me? You step out of victimhood and into mastery. You become the observer of your own movie. And that's when you can rewrite the script. The energy that once went into surviving now fuels your creativity, your intuition, your prosperity. Breaking cycles is the art of emotional awareness meeting intentional action. It's about catching the moment where the old story tries to play again and refusing to give it your energy. When you do that long enough, the pattern dissolves and momentum takes over. From that point, every decision, every thought, every emotion becomes a vote for the future you are building. And when enough votes accumulate, transformation is inevitable. That's how momentum begins, not as a leap, but as a consistent rhythm of new choices aligned with your higher vision. When you master this process, you stop running from problems and start running toward purpose. The same energy that once attracted pain now attracts prosperity. You're no longer repeating your past. You're designing your destiny. Topic 4. The power of emotional frequency. How to shift from scarcity to abundance. One of the biggest discoveries I made on my journey from victimhood to prosperity was that abundance isn't something you chase. It's something you tune into. It's not about doing more, hustling harder, or forcing results. It's about shifting your emotional frequency to match the reality you want to live in. Everything in the universe vibrates at a certain frequency, including you, your thoughts, and your emotions. Success, wealth, and happiness aren't random. They are energetic states. When your vibration matches them, life responds accordingly. In the past, I was vibrating at scarcity without realizing it. I was constantly worrying about what I didn't have, who had more than me, and what could go wrong next. I thought I was being realistic, but in truth, I was sending out a constant signal of lack. And the universe, like an echo, kept sending me experiences that matched that frequency. Scarcity energy is heavy, constricted, anxious, and rooted in fear. You can't attract abundance from that state any more than you can tune into a radio station that's not on your frequency. When I began observing my emotions, I realized that my energy would rise or fall depending on my thoughts. If I thought about debt, I felt tension. If I imagined opportunity, I felt expansion. That feeling of expansion, joy, gratitude, inspiration, that's abundance energy. It's open, light, magnetic. It pulls good things toward you effortlessly. The shift between scarcity and abundance begins not with your bank account or circumstances, but with your emotional frequency. To change my vibration, I had to change my emotional habits. Emotions are energy in motion, and most people let them move unconsciously, reacting to the external world. But when you decide to generate emotions intentionally, you become the architect of your frequency. Every morning before checking my phone, I practiced gratitude, not as a cliché, but as an energetic reset. I'd think of 3 things I was grateful for, and I'd feel them deeply. Gratitude turns what you have into enough. And when you feel like you have enough, you vibrate abundance. I also learned to guard my emotional state like it was sacred, because it is. Every conversation, every environment, every piece of content you consume carries a vibration. If you constantly engage with negativity, gossip, drama, scarcity talk, it lowers your frequency. You begin to match that vibration unconsciously. So I became selective. I listened to empowering content. I surrounded myself with positive people. I created spaces that inspired me. My home, my desk, my routine, all became rituals of abundance. Neuroscience supports this idea. Your emotional state literally determines the chemistry of your brain. When you feel gratitude or love, your body releases dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, chemicals that signal safety, creativity, and openness. When you feel fear or scarcity, you release cortisol and adrenaline, stress hormones that signal danger. You can't create in survival mode. The brain's prefrontal cortex, responsible for vision and imagination, shuts down under stress. That's why fear kills manifestation. You can't access creative intelligence while your body thinks it's in danger. So, shifting from scarcity to abundance is not just spiritual, it's biological. You are either signaling the body to survive or to thrive. Every thought, every emotion, every reaction is casting that vote. When I understood this, I made a commitment. I would no longer allow fear to be my dominant vibration. That didn't mean I never felt fear. It meant I stopped feeding it. When fear appeared, I acknowledged it, thanked it for its message, and redirected my focus to faith. Faith isn't blind optimism. It's emotional alignment with possibility. In moments of uncertainty, I began asking myself, what's the highest frequency I can choose right now? Sometimes it was calm. Sometimes it was gratitude. Sometimes it was laughter. The key wasn't to force joy, but to choose a better vibration each time I noticed myself slipping into scarcity. One conscious choice at a time, I began training my emotional muscle for abundance. And something incredible started happening. The outer world began to mirror my inner calm. Projects that had been stuck for months began to move. People who had been distant reappeared with opportunities. I didn't chase, I attracted. Not because I was lucky, but because I had changed my signal. Energy attracts energy. When you emit gratitude, life sends you more things to be grateful for. When you radiate confidence, opportunities that match that confidence appear. When you live in the vibration of enough, you start receiving more than enough. It's not magic, it's resonance. One of the most powerful tools I used to maintain this vibration was music. I played uplifting, high-frequency sounds throughout the day, tones that made me feel expansive and alive. I realized that sound, like thought, carries vibration. So I filled my environment with frequencies that reminded me of abundance. Another key was self-compassion. When I caught myself feeling low or anxious, I stopped judging it. Judgment lowers frequency. Compassion raises it. I would say, "It's okay, I'm recalibrating." That simple kindness kept me in flow. You can't shame yourself into abundance. You can only love yourself into alignment. By the final week of my transformation, I noticed that my emotional baseline had changed. I wasn't constantly reacting anymore. I was responding. I had learned to pause between stimulus and reaction. That sacred space where choice exists. That's where power lives. And the more I chose thoughts of peace, gratitude, and confidence, the more my external world rearranged itself to match that inner frequency. The power of emotional frequency is real. You are not a victim of your feelings. You are their creator. And when you master your emotions, you master your vibration. From there, abundance becomes inevitable. Because prosperity doesn't come to those who chase it. It comes to those who become it. Topic 5. The identity shift. Becoming the person who naturally attracts prosperity. When I finally understood that my outer world was only a mirror of my inner identity, everything changed. I realized I could not manifest a prosperous life while still identifying as someone who struggled. Every goal I was chasing, money, freedom, peace, was impossible to sustain until I became the kind of person who naturally aligned with those results. Prosperity isn't something you get, it's something you embody. We all live according to a self-image, a story we tell ourselves about who we are and what we deserve. If deep down you believe, "I'm not good with money," "I always lose opportunities," or "things never work out for me," no strategy or external success will ever stick. The subconscious will sabotage it because it must remain consistent with your identity. The brain would rather be consistent than happy. It prioritizes familiarity over success. So I asked myself, who am I choosing to be? That question became my turning point. Every morning I stopped focusing on what I wanted to get and started focusing on who I was becoming. I didn't affirm goals, I affirmed identities. Instead of saying, "I want to be wealthy," I said, "I am a disciplined, abundant, creative person who attracts wealth easily." Instead of "I want success," I said, "I am the kind of person success naturally finds." The goal wasn't to fake confidence. It was to train my subconscious to accept a new truth. Identity is shaped by repetition and evidence. So, I began to behave as if I already was the person I wanted to become. I asked myself daily, how would the abundant version of me think, feel, and act in this situation? That question alone rewired my behavior. When faced with fear, I asked, would my abundant self act from fear or faith? When procrastinating, I asked, would my successful self wait or take aligned action? Slowly, my choices began to match my desired identity, and life mirrored that back. At first, the mind resisted. It argued, "You're pretending. This isn't real." But that's how transformation always begins. You act before you feel ready. The truth is, the subconscious doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. It only knows what you repeat with emotion. So I kept rehearsing success until it felt natural. I stopped looking for proof outside and started generating it inside. And here's the paradox. When you shift identity first, external results begin to chase you. Opportunities that once seemed far away begin appearing because you've finally become the vibrational match for them. It's not luck, it's resonance. The universe isn't testing you, it's responding to you. During this stage of my transformation, I began to notice that old habits no longer fit. Gossiping felt strange, complaining felt foreign, even negative self-talk felt out of alignment. That's how you know your identity is upgrading, when the old frequency feels uncomfortable. I replaced those habits with daily rituals of alignment, meditation, visualization, gratitude walks, reading about success stories. I wasn't forcing change, I was nurturing it. I also learned that identity is not built through grand gestures, but through micro decisions. Every time I chose discipline over distraction, abundance over fear, or gratitude over complaint, I was casting a vote for my new identity. One small, aligned choice might seem insignificant, but over time, it rewires your sense of self. Neuroscience calls this identity-based habit formation. You don't act to get results. You act to become. The results follow naturally. Another breakthrough came when I stopped saying, "I'm trying." Trying is a word that keeps you in limbo between failure and commitment. I replaced it with "I am." I wasn't trying to be successful. I was successful, and I was simply aligning my outer world with that truth. That language shift rewrote my vibration completely. The subconscious takes words literally, so every "I am" becomes a command. The more I embodied this new identity, the more confident and magnetic I felt. It wasn't arrogance, it was energetic certainty. I no longer needed validation because I was living from an inner standard, not external approval. I started feeling gratitude before seeing results, which accelerated everything. Gratitude is the emotional bridge between desire and manifestation. When you give thanks, as if it's already done, you signal to the universe that you trust the process, and that trust is the highest vibration of all. By the 4th week of my transformation, people around me started noticing. "You seem different," they'd say. "Calmer, more focused." They didn't realize that my outer calm was simply the reflection of inner certainty. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was responding with purpose. The same situations that used to drain me became opportunities to reinforce my new self-concept. That's the essence of identity work. Life stops being a test and becomes a mirror. When challenges appear, you no longer see them as proof of failure, but as invitations to anchor your new frequency. Each time you hold your ground in alignment, the old version of you loses power. The secret to lasting success is not motivation, it's identity. Motivation fades, but identity sustains. You can't stay disciplined out of willpower alone. You stay disciplined because that's who you are. You can't keep attracting abundance by wishing. You attract it because you embody it. Prosperity becomes effortless when it's your nature, not your goal. So, if you want to create real, lasting change, stop asking, "What do I need to do?" and start asking, "Who do I need to become?" That question unlocks everything. Because once you shift your self-image to match the frequency of your dreams, you no longer chase success, it becomes inevitable. Topic 6. The Prosperity Habit. Loop. Daily actions that rewire wealth thinking. One of the greatest truths I've learned is that success and prosperity aren't born from one lucky break or a single defining moment. They are built patiently and quietly through the habits you repeat every day. Prosperity is not a result, it's a rhythm. Every thought, word, and action you perform on a consistent basis programs your subconscious to either attract wealth or repel it. What you do daily is what you become permanently. When I decided to stop living as a victim and start living as a creator, I had to re-engineer my routine. My old habits kept me trapped in limitation because they reinforced the same emotional state: stress, fear, doubt. I wanted freedom, abundance, and peace. But my behaviors didn't reflect those energies. I began to understand that habits are not just actions, they are identities in motion. Every repetition is a vote for who you believe yourself to be. So, if I wanted to become the kind of person who naturally attracts prosperity, I had to start thinking and acting like that person long before I saw results. Every morning, I made a conscious decision to start my day aligned with abundance. Before I touched my phone or thought about responsibilities, I focused on gratitude. I took a few deep breaths and said to myself, "Thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity to create, to grow, to expand." Gratitude was my first act of abundance, because it told the universe I already had enough. That simple ritual rewired my emotions. I stopped beginning the day with stress and started it with appreciation, and that alone shifted everything. After that, I visualized my ideal day unfolding perfectly. I pictured myself calm, productive, smiling, and confident. Visualization, I learned, is not daydreaming. It's mental training. The brain doesn't distinguish between real experiences and vividly imagined ones. It fires the same neural pathways. When you imagine abundance with genuine feeling, you teach your nervous system to recognize that frequency as normal. The more you feel it, the faster it becomes your default state. As the days passed, I became aware of how small actions shaped my vibration. I started walking every morning while repeating powerful affirmations in rhythm with my breath. I am abundant. I am capable. I am aligned with wealth. With every step, I felt my energy expand. These words weren't empty statements. They were commands to my subconscious, instructions for how I wanted my mind and body to operate. The more emotion I invested, the faster the results appeared. But abundance is not only about what you do, it's also about what you stop doing. I stopped speaking in the language of lack. No more saying, "I can't afford that," or "That's impossible." I replaced those with, "I'm open to new ways of creating this," or "What can I do to make this happen?" Those questions opened mental doors instead of closing them. Language is energy, and energy either builds or destroys momentum. Once I changed my words, I changed my outcomes. I also became very protective of my environment. I cleaned my workspace, organized my finances, and surrounded myself with images, books, and sounds that inspired abundance. Chaos and clutter carry the frequency of confusion. Order and clarity carry the frequency of prosperity. I began noticing that when my surroundings were calm and organized, my thoughts followed the same pattern. A clear space became a clear mind, and a clear mind creates clear results. Another shift came when I learned to guard my attention. Every distraction, every unnecessary notification, every meaningless conversation was draining the energy I needed to create. Prosperous people think in terms of energy, not time. They know that focus is currency, and wherever attention flows, results grow. I stopped multitasking and began giving my full presence to one thing at a time. Whether it was work, rest, or conversation, I was fully there. That focus created a deep sense of inner peace that amplified my effectiveness. Over the weeks, my daily rituals began to merge into a natural rhythm. Gratitude brought clarity. Clarity brought focus. Focus brought productivity. Productivity brought fulfillment. And fulfillment deepened my gratitude. It became a loop, one positive emotion feeding the next, creating self-sustaining momentum. The more I stayed consistent, the more effortless it became. Prosperity stopped feeling like a destination and started feeling like a flow I had tapped into. Before bed, I ended each day intentionally. Instead of replaying what went wrong, I reflected on what went right. I acknowledged small victories, moments of growth, or lessons learned. I went to sleep in a state of appreciation, knowing that my subconscious would carry that vibration into the next day. The quality of your thoughts before sleep determines the quality of your reality when you wake. What I discovered through these practices is that habits are the architecture of your destiny. You don't build prosperity through massive leaps. You build it through small, repeated alignments. Every time you choose gratitude over complaint, discipline over distraction, or faith over fear, you are wiring your brain for success. The subconscious learns through emotion and repetition. So when your habits are emotionally charged with purpose, they become permanent. By the end of the 30 days, these actions were no longer routines. They were part of who I was. I didn't have to force positivity or remind myself to stay grateful. It was automatic because I had reprogrammed the emotional loop that governed my days. The same energy I used to spend worrying was now directed toward creation. The same time I used to waste on distractions was now invested in growth. I had turned my habits into a living system of prosperity. That's when I understood something profound. Habits don't imprison you. They free you. They remove the friction between intention and action. They give structure to your energy so it can flow toward creation instead of chaos. Prosperity, in its essence, is the result of energy well-directed. And when your daily habits align with your highest vision, success becomes inevitable. Not because you're chasing it, but because you've become the person who naturally attracts it. Topic 7. Magnetic confidence. The inner power that attracts success and opportunity. Confidence is not something you're born with. It's something you build through awareness and alignment. Before my transformation, I used to think confidence meant being loud, fearless, or dominant. But true confidence has nothing to do with volume. It's an inner calm, a silent certainty that you are guided, capable, and worthy. It's the energy that says, "I belong here," even before you have proof. Confidence is magnetic because it signals to the universe and to everyone around you that you already trust your path. In the past, My confidence depended on results. If things went well, I felt strong. If things fell apart, I felt small. I was constantly seeking external validation, trying to prove my worth through outcomes, achievements, or other people's approval. But that kind of confidence is fragile. It rises and falls with circumstances. It's built on sand, not rock. When I began my 30-day transformation, I made a promise to myself. I would no longer build confidence from outside in. I would build it from the inside out. Confidence begins with clarity. You can't feel powerful when you're uncertain about who you are or what you stand for. I had to define my values and reconnect with what truly mattered to me. I asked myself, what kind of person do I want to be when no one is watching? That question shifted everything. I realized that confidence comes from congruence, when your thoughts, words, and actions all move in the same direction. Every time I honored my word, followed through on a commitment, or spoke my truth kindly but firmly, I felt stronger. Integrity builds confidence because it teaches your subconscious that you can trust yourself. Another major shift was learning to detach my self-worth from my mistakes. For years, I equated failure with inadequacy. If something didn't work out, I immediately thought, I'm not good enough. But I began to see that failure is not proof of weakness. It's evidence of growth. Confidence doesn't come from never falling. It comes from knowing you can rise every time you do. The moment I stopped labeling my mistakes as shameful and started treating them as feedback, my fear began to dissolve. That's when confidence took root. The energy of confidence is powerful because it communicates safety. People are drawn to those who are calm and centered, not because of charisma, but because their energy feels stable. When you radiate calm certainty, others subconsciously feel they can trust you. It's the same in manifestation. The universe responds to the vibration of certainty. When you know that what you want is already on its way, you stop chasing and start attracting. That's magnetic confidence. I also learned that confidence grows through preparation. It's not just mindset, it's mastery. I began studying, practicing, and improving daily. I invested in my skills, read books, listened to mentors, and refined my craft. Confidence built on competence is unshakable because it's earned. The more I grew, the more I trusted myself to handle challenges. That self-trust became the foundation of every new opportunity that came my way. But perhaps the most transformative shift was learning to regulate my energy before taking action. When I felt nervous or insecure, I paused and centered my breath. I would say silently, I am safe, I am guided, I am enough. Within minutes, my energy changed. I learned that confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act with alignment despite fear. When your energy is calm and grounded, you access clarity, creativity, and intuition, the true sources of personal power. Confidence also comes from honoring your progress. Most people sabotage their self-belief because they focus on how far they still have to go instead of how far they've come. I began celebrating every small win, not with arrogance, but with gratitude. Every time I acknowledged growth, I reinforced the belief that I was evolving. The subconscious loves recognition. It expands what you celebrate. So I made celebration a daily practice. It kept my vibration high and my momentum strong. By the third week of this journey, something fascinating happened. Opportunities started finding me. People reached out, collaborations appeared, ideas flowed. It wasn't coincidence. It was alignment. The moment I stopped doubting myself, the world stopped doubting me. Confidence became my signal to the universe that I was ready for more. I didn't have to convince anyone of my worth. My energy spoke louder than words. True confidence isn't arrogance or superiority. It's humility anchored in self-assurance. It's knowing that you're part of something bigger, a co-creator with life itself. That realization dissolves comparison. You stop competing because you understand that no one can take what's yours when you're aligned with your purpose. You become magnetic not because you're trying to impress, but because you're simply being. When you radiate confidence, everything changes. How people treat you, how opportunities appear, and how you see yourself. The doors you used to knock on begin opening on their own. Confidence is the bridge between vision and manifestation. It's what transforms "I hope" into "I know." By the end of my transformation, confidence wasn't something I practiced. It was who I had become. I no longer needed permission to dream, to speak, or to take up space. I trusted my intuition, valued my voice, and moved through life with quiet strength. That's what magnetic confidence truly is, not a performance, but a vibration. It's the unshakable knowing that you are the source of your success and the magnet for your prosperity. Topic 8. The Prosperity Energy Flow: How Giving and Receiving Multiply Abundance. At some point during my 30-day transformation, I realized that prosperity wasn't just about mindset or discipline. It was about flow. Life itself moves in cycles of giving and receiving, expansion and contraction, inhale and exhale. Everything in nature follows this rhythm, yet most people interrupt it because of fear. We hold back, we hoard, we doubt, and in doing so, we block the very current that carries abundance into our lives. Prosperity isn't something to accumulate, it's something to circulate. When I lived in scarcity, I didn't know how to give freely. I held on tightly to money, to time, to opportunities, because I believed there wasn't enough. I thought giving would make me lose what little I had. But that belief kept me stuck in limitation. Energy that doesn't flow becomes stagnant. The same way water turns toxic when trapped, prosperity withers when you try to possess it instead of letting it move. The truth is, abundance grows only in circulation. The turning point came when I decided to act as if the universe was already abundant. I began to give where I could, not out of obligation, but out of faith. I smiled more. I shared my time. I supported others. I tipped a little extra even when it felt uncomfortable. At first, it scared me. My old conditioning whispered, "What if you don't have enough later?" But every act of generosity weakened that fear and strengthened my trust and flow. Soon, I noticed a pattern. Every time I gave from genuine abundance, something came back to me multiplied. Not always in money, but in opportunity, peace, or unexpected kindness. Giving shifts your energy from scarcity to sufficiency. It tells your subconscious, "I have more than enough to share." And once your mind believes that, life begins reflecting it. The key is to give with clean energy, not to impress, not to control, not to manipulate, but to contribute. Giving with fear still carries the vibration of lack, but giving with love radiates prosperity. The emotion behind the act determines its energetic return. I also had to learn the second half of the equation: receiving. Many people block abundance not because they don't give, but because they don't know how to receive. I used to dismiss compliments, reject help, or downplay success because it made me uncomfortable. But rejecting blessings is another form of scarcity. It sends the message that you don't feel worthy of abundance. Receiving is an act of trust. It's saying, "I am open to the good that life wants to give me." Once I allowed myself to receive without guilt, I realized how much I had been resisting the universe's generosity all along. Receiving also requires presence. You can't receive what you're not aware of. I started paying attention to small gifts life was offering me daily: a message of encouragement, a free coffee, an opportunity disguised as coincidence. The more grateful I became for those small moments, the more they multiplied. Gratitude turns receiving into expansion. It tells the universe, "This feels good. Send more of this." As the days passed, I noticed how giving and receiving worked together like breathing. When I gave, I exhaled abundance into the world. When I received, I inhaled it back in. The more balanced the rhythm, the more effortless life became. Whenever I felt stuck or anxious, I asked myself, where am I blocking the flow? Am I withholding something I could give, or am I resisting something life is trying to offer me? That awareness alone restored the balance. I also learned that generosity isn't limited to money. You can give attention, encouragement, kindness, wisdom, creativity, or simply your positive presence. Each act carries energy, and energy always returns in kind. If you radiate warmth, warmth comes back. If you radiate trust, life responds with proof that you can trust it. That's not just philosophy, it's physics. Energy seeks balance, and every vibration eventually finds its echo. This understanding changed the way I approached work, relationships, and goals. Instead of asking, "What can I get from this?" I began asking, "What can I give to this?" That shift of intention made everything I touched more valuable. It elevated my energy and, in return, attracted higher frequencies, people who uplifted me, opportunities that matched my growth. ideas that expanded my vision. Prosperity followed effortlessly because I was finally moving in harmony with the universal current. There were days when my ego resisted. It whispered, "You're giving too much. What if nothing comes back?" But I reminded myself that life always fills the space you create. The moment you let go of fear, you make room for miracles. That's how I began to live, open-handed, open-hearted, trusting that what left my life with love would always return, multiplied. By the last week of my journey, giving and receiving felt natural. I didn't think about it anymore. I simply flowed with it. Money began circulating more easily, opportunities appeared without force, and even my relationships deepened. I stopped trying to control how things came back. I just trusted they would. And they did. The more I aligned with generosity and gratitude, the more life mirrored them back. That's when I finally understood the true nature of prosperity. It's not a possession, it's participation. You can't own abundance, but you can join its flow. Every time you give freely and receive gracefully, you're saying yes to that flow. You become part of an infinite exchange between you and the universe, an exchange that never runs dry. Prosperity expands through motion. The more you let energy move through you, the more you have. Because in the divine economy of life, the giver and the receiver are one. When you give from love, you are not losing. You are amplifying. And when you receive with gratitude, you complete the circuit that keeps abundance alive. That's the rhythm of a prosperous life, a perfect harmony of giving, receiving, and trusting the flow. Topic 9. Faith over fear, the invisible bridge between vision and reality. There was a moment in my transformation when everything I had learned, mindset, emotion, identity, and flow, came down to one simple, powerful test. Would I choose faith or fear? Because at every new level of growth, life gives you a choice. Fear tells you to hold back, to wait until you're ready, to doubt the unseen. Faith whispers, trust the process. And in that choice lies the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. For most of my life, I let fear drive my decisions. I wanted certainty before I acted, guarantees before I believed. But that's not how creation works. Faith is the currency of manifestation. You pay in belief before you receive in evidence. The universe doesn't respond to wishful thinking. It responds to conviction. If you want to move from vision to reality, you must act as if the invisible is more real than what you see. That's the essence of faith, aligning your energy with what hasn't yet appeared, trusting that it's already unfolding. Fear is not the enemy. It's a signal. It shows you exactly where your faith is weak. Every time fear surfaced during those 30 days, I treated it like an invitation to strengthen my trust. When my mind whispered, "What if this doesn't work?" I answered, "But what if it does?" That single question turned doubt into curiosity, and curiosity into courage. The moment I stopped resisting fear and started using it as fuel, I began to feel powerful instead of powerless. The truth is, fear and faith are both acts of imagination. Fear imagines the worst. Faith imagines the best. Both are invisible forces that shape your perception, and your perception shapes your results. When I realized that, I began training my imagination like a muscle. I visualized outcomes that empowered me, not paralyzed me. I started believing that everything happening, even the challenges, was part of my alignment. That mindset shifted my vibration from worry to wisdom. One of the most liberating things I learned was that faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's the decision to move forward despite it. I stopped waiting to feel ready. Readiness, I discovered, is an illusion created by fear to delay action. You become ready by acting. Every step you take with faith builds the evidence your mind needs to trust again. That's how the invisible becomes visible, through action grounded in belief. There were days I couldn't see progress. I was doing the inner work, practicing new habits, maintaining gratitude, but results hadn't yet manifested. That's when old fear tried to creep back in, whispering that nothing was changing. In those moments, I reminded myself, seeds grow underground before they break the surface. Just because I couldn't see movement didn't mean it wasn't happening. Faith is patience in motion, the calm knowing that what you've planted is already growing, even when it's not visible. I learned to measure success not by immediate results, but by energetic alignment. If I felt at peace, I knew I was on the right path. Peace became my proof. The deeper my faith grew, the quieter my mind became. I stopped overanalyzing, stopped forcing, stopped doubting every detail. I trusted that what belonged to me would find me, and what left was simply making space for something greater. The bridge of faith also required surrender. Not passive surrender, but conscious release, letting go of control and trusting divine timing. I realized that control was just fear disguised as responsibility. The more I tried to force outcomes, the more resistance I created. The moment I relaxed and said, "I trust life," doors began opening effortlessly. It was as if the universe had been waiting for me to stop gripping so tightly before it could deliver what I asked for. Science even supports this. The body can't distinguish between imagined fear and real danger. When you live in fear, your nervous system stays in survival mode, cutting off access to creativity, intuition, and higher reasoning. Faith does the opposite. It signals safety, allowing your brain to open, your energy to expand, and your vibration to rise. That's why breakthroughs never happen in panic. They happen in peace. Faith also reshaped how I handled uncertainty. Instead of dreading the unknown, I began to see it as the space where miracles happen. If everything were predictable, there would be no room for magic. The unknown became exciting, proof that I was evolving beyond the limits of logic. Every time I walked into uncertainty with trust, something extraordinary met me there. A new connection, a fresh idea, an opportunity I couldn't have planned. By the final week, fear no longer felt like a wall. It became a doorway. Whenever it appeared, I smiled and thought, "Good. This means I'm expanding." I stopped running from discomfort and started walking straight through it. That's what faith really is. Movement in alignment with your higher self. It's choosing your future self's voice over your past self's fear. As I looked back on those 30 days, I realized that faith was the thread that had connected every transformation. It was faith that helped me stop being a victim. Faith that allowed me to reprogram my mind. Faith that kept me consistent with my habits. Faith that gave me the courage to give, to receive, to trust, and to continue even when results weren't visible. Faith is not a luxury. It's a necessity for those who want to live in abundance. Because prosperity is invisible before it becomes tangible. It begins as a vibration long before it shows up in form. When you learn to believe in that vibration, to feel it as real even before you can touch it, you become unstoppable. The opposite of fear is not courage, it's faith. Courage acts in the presence of fear, but faith dissolves it completely. Faith is the energy of certainty that turns the impossible into inevitable. And when you cross that invisible bridge, you'll see that everything you've ever wanted was waiting for you. On the other side of fear. Topic 10. The final shift. Becoming the source of your own prosperity. As my 30-day transformation came to an end, I realized something so profound that it changed not only the way I saw success and prosperity, but the way I experienced life itself. Everything I had learned about mindset, emotion, identity, and energy pointed to one ultimate truth. You are not chasing prosperity. You are the source of it. That realization hit me one quiet morning as I watched the sunrise. I had gone through weeks of deep reflection, rewiring thoughts, releasing fears, reprogramming beliefs, building habits, and trusting unseen forces. But at that moment, I finally understood what all of it meant. Prosperity was never something external to achieve. It was an internal frequency I had learned to sustain. All along, I had been searching for abundance out there, in people, in opportunities, in validation, when the source had always been within me. When you stop trying to get abundance and start being abundance, everything changes. The world stops feeling like a battlefield and starts feeling like a mirror. You no longer wake up chasing success. You wake up radiating it. You no longer ask, "When will I get there?" Because you realize you already are there. The outer results are just catching up to the vibration you've been holding inside. That's when life becomes effortless. You stop forcing, convincing, and controlling. You start allowing, receiving, and flowing. You start realizing that your only true job is to stay aligned with the highest version of yourself, the one who already knows they are worthy, capable, and enough. Prosperity begins to follow you naturally because you've become the kind of person who no longer repels it with fear or doubt. During those 30 days, I went from being a victim of circumstances to becoming the creator of my reality. I stopped waiting for permission and started granting it to myself. I stopped asking life to give me more and started giving more to life. And that shift, from scarcity to sufficiency, from effort to alignment, is the secret that every master, every teacher, every success story shares in their own way. The moment you realize that you are the generator of your own vibration, you reclaim the ultimate power, the power to design your destiny. I began to see prosperity not as something I possessed, but as something I expressed. Every thought of gratitude, every act of kindness, every decision rooted in faith was a declaration that I was abundant now. That's when I truly understood the spiritual law of cause and effect. That energy given with love returns multiplied. The more I focused on contribution instead of competition, the more abundance expanded in my life. And yet, the greatest reward of this journey wasn't the material results, though those came too, naturally and easily. The true reward was peace, a peace so deep that even uncertainty couldn't shake it. I stopped measuring success by how much I had and started measuring it by how aligned I felt. That inner peace became the real proof of prosperity. Because when you reach that level of consciousness, wealth is no longer just about numbers. It's about energy, freedom, and expansion. Everything you desire already exists in potential form, waiting for you to become the person who can hold it. That's why inner work is never wasted. Every affirmation, every act of forgiveness, every moment of awareness is a seed you plant in the soil of your consciousness. And when you nurture those seeds with consistency and love, they must bloom. It's a universal law. What you cultivate within inevitably manifests without. So many people spend their lives chasing external validation, thinking that success will make them feel complete. But the truth is reversed. Only wholeness creates success that lasts. You don't become prosperous because you have everything. You have everything because you already feel prosperous. When you embody that vibration daily, prosperity can no longer avoid you. You become its magnet. By the end of those 30 days, my external life looked different, but my inner world was unrecognizable, clearer, lighter, freer. I no longer needed to prove, perform, or please. I was simply being. My mind was quiet, my emotions were stable, my energy was grounded. I didn't wake up worrying about what was missing. I woke up grateful for what was already here. That state of gratitude became my default frequency, and that frequency created miracles. Here's what I learned. Life is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you really are, the creator, the architect, the source. Every time you choose faith over fear, gratitude over complaint, purpose over distraction, you are remembering that truth. You are reconnecting with the infinite power that lives inside you. And once you live from that awareness, you stop trying to manifest abundance. You simply express it. You become prosperity in human form. Your thoughts, your words, your energy begin to uplift others. You start to see opportunities everywhere because your consciousness is no longer tuned to scarcity. You become an instrument through which abundance flows effortlessly, to you, through you, and beyond you. That's the final shift. The realization that you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If you want more love, be love. If you want more success, act as success. If you want more wealth, think, feel, and behave like someone who already lives in abundance. When your inner vibration and outer actions are aligned, the universe cannot help but respond. It's not a question of if prosperity will come. It's a question of how much you're willing to allow. And that's the journey, not just 30 days of change, but a lifetime of remembering your creative power. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not lacking. You are evolving into the full expression of who you were always meant to be. Every lesson, every challenge, every breakthrough was never punishment. It was preparation for your expansion. So, as you listen to this now, take a breath and remind yourself, you are not a victim of life. You are life itself, expressing, expanding, and evolving through experience. You are not waiting for abundance. Abundance is waiting for you to claim it. And the moment you do, everything in your reality begins to rearrange in your favor. You are the code, the signal, and the source. When you embody that truth, prosperity is no longer something you seek. It becomes the natural state of your being. And when you live from that awareness, you don't just change your life, you elevate everyone who crosses your path. If this message resonated with you, if it awakened something inside you, reminded you of your power, and helped you see that you are the source of your own prosperity, then take a moment to keep this energy flowing. Subscribe to the Success and Prosperity Code channel so we can continue walking this path of awareness and transformation together. Like this video if it inspired you, because every act of engagement helps this message reach others who need it. Comment below and share what part of this journey spoke most deeply to your heart. Your reflection might be the message someone else is praying to hear today. And share this video with someone who's ready to break free from limitation and step into their own abundance. Remember, prosperity expands when it's shared. Let's keep the energy moving, because the world doesn't need more people chasing success. It needs more people becoming it. Welcome to your new reality, the reality where you are the source, and abundance is your natural state.